Okay, welcome to our Erev Shabbat Parashat class, Parashat Yitro, Aseret HaDiberot. Why two tablets? A lot of whys we have to ask. The greatest, most significant moment in Jewish and human history, for that matter, Ma'amad Har Sinai. Kadosh Baruch Hu gave to Am Yisrael a gift of Torah, and starting with what we call Aseret HaDiberot, inaccurately termed as the 10 Commandments, for it is not 10 Commandments. We know the counting of Mizvot by the Rambam, at least, it's a good 14 Commandments, as there's 3 extras in the category of Avodah Zarah, which is the second Dibera, second Dibur, and there's an extra one on Shabbat. There's a Aseh and Alot Aseh and Zachor, just 14 Commandments, Mizvot, but there's Aseret HaDiberot, but there are 10 statements or 10 general directives. And these, although not necessarily the top 10 in severity level, are the corpus of God's Torah Kula, God's Torah in its entirety. As the Ben Shaya Gaon explains, they're a microcosm for all of the Mizvot. They are the core principles of Mizvot, and other Mizvot emanate and branch off of these big 10, or let's not say 10 Mizvot, these 10 statements, the Berot. So really, in terms of their significance and their substance, they speak for themselves. So much so that in the Gentile world, the 10 Commandments have been adopted by not just other religions, but other people of values, principles, godliness, and faith as directives of life. And in fact, 6 of the 7 of the Sheva Mizvot Ben Noach, the Noahide laws, their sources are in these Aseret HaDiberot. And so that the Umot HaOlam, the Gentile nations, really share with us the Aseret HaDiberot and their obligations. But let's talk about, beyond that, the presentation of Hashem. We know that Shnei Luchot, 2 tablets, were given to Moshe Rabbeinu, and we know these Aseret HaDiberot were recorded on both tablets. So first of all, what is the idea of 2 tablets? We got used to this as the narrative from when we're children, the story of the Torah. Indeed, it's accurate, 2 tablets, but why? Just present us one nice, neat list on one. You want it to be a tablet? Fine. On one nice tablet, present it to Am Yisrael. What do you need a double for? Right? Double feature, lahavdil. So there's a midrash in Shemot Rabbah that tells us the significance of 2 tablets in terms of what they represent and how that aligns appropriately with these Diberot, with these first Mizvot. There are a few national Mizvot given already in Parashat Bo to Am Yisrael, but first, official, organized way Mizvot to Am Yisrael. Why 2 tablets? So there's a midrash. Midrash says, Shnei Luchot, they're keneged, they align to what? Shemayim va'aretz. There's a physical world and a metaphysical world that Hashem created. So 2 tablets align to that. Keneged hatan v'kala, bride and groom. In other words, that represents the relationship between God and man, and Am Yisrael and HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Those 2 tablets are the connection between heaven and earth, you can say. Says the Midrash, Keneged ha'olam hazeh v'olam haba. There's a current existence and there's a future existence. So there are these mega ideas, and they are represented in God's first official presentation of Torah on 2 separate slates. Okay. Now the truth is, we also got used to the idea that on each there are 5 and 5. It doesn't say that anywhere in the actual Pisukim. We just assume that should be even, right? Should be nice and neat. They should fit well. We're assuming it should be 5 and 5. There's actually one source in Yerushalmi, in Talmud Yerushalmi, that says indeed 5 and 5. So it's tradition. We understand it. We accept it to be. Based on that, the Mefarshim tirelessly try to understand what that subdivision is of 5 and 5. And probably the most popular theory and approach is that on one side you have mitzvot ben adam la Hashem, between man and God, and let's call that the right tablet. And on the other side, tablet 2, the left tablet, mitzvot ben adam la Hashem, adam la Havira rather, and we're used to them being presented on the Aron Kodesh and the Bet Knesset, the 5 and the 5. They ask and they have to reconcile. What about honoring their parents? Parents are partners with God, comes the answer, and therefore it's also semi-respect of God. Okay, that is a very popular and traditional view to take. Without offering something that contradicts that, what I'd like to do is offer a neat, simple, and brief presentation as to how else to look at the 5 and 5. It's a chart that I created some years ago. You can't really appreciate it from this picture, but 2 tablets represent, I believe, 2 sets of obligations that Am Yisrael have incumbent upon them, ba'olam hazeh, in this world. And basically they are, one is the way we I'll give single names for them in Hebrew in a moment. But in general, what we're doing on planet Earth, ba'olam hazeh, is worshiping HaKadosh Baruch Hu in various ways, and B, interacting with the world, as we're not just spiritual beings with the soul, we're given a physical jacket and casing, a body, and we have to interact and live in this world and carry out our obligations in this world. So we worship God. At the same time, we interact with the rest of the world. I call those 2 activities of man and the Jewish people in this world as 1, avodah, service, worship of God, and 2, kedusha, sanctity. So I want you to just remember those 2 words, those 2 general functions of man, and those 2 as titles on top of the right hand, tablet number 1, and left hand, tablet number 2. Avodah and kedusha. And we can try to fit everything nice and neatly into both those categories, with subcategories of avodah, of worship, and subcategories of kedusha, of sanctity, in the way we interact. And you'll follow me. You can follow the Aseh Deberot, if you like, in Parashat Yitro, starting from Adoni Anochi Adonai Elohecha, going all the way through Lo Tahmod, the last one. It's a brief parasha, and I will attempt to fit in the first half 5 into Avodah and the second 5 into Kedusha. So, if you're ready, let's go. Anochi Adonai Elohecha is, of course, the main mitzvah of the Torah, to believe in God, and that form of Avodah, of worship, is mental worship, our faith obligations to God. These are constant obligations that throughout the course of our life, their expectations upon us, they're the most severe and serious expectation for any Jew, for any human being as well. Mental worship, anochi. Lo yihye lecha. It's a negative command. It's actually 4 commandments in the category of lo yihye lecha, relating to avodah zarah, the prohibitions of idolatry and creating other deities, believing in other deities. But of course, the Torah states it in its more severe form. But it's actually the flip side, conversely, is a positive category of worship. And so really, Lo Yelecha represents physical worship of God, ceremonial worship of God, most classically in the Bet HaMikdash, first and foremost, with upcoming parashiyot, Turman Tesaveh. That's the beginning, that's the basis for physical and ceremonial worship that extended throughout history to prayers, to Patei Knesiyot, to synagogues, and of course, a number of other mitzvot that we have, tefillin, talet, that are physical forms of worship of God, ceremonial worship. So we have mental worship, we have physical ceremonial worship. Lo tisa is another negative command, not carrying God's name in vain, That's speaking God's name in vain. But again, the Torah adopted the severe transgression vis-a-vis God and his name. But it really represents a broader category. On the positive side, it is really what we call Yirat Hashem. Because after all, if I'm aware, conscious of God, I won't abuse his name in the most extreme way. But it also means that I will carry myself. Yirat Shamayim is this term that pretty much defines what an observant, proper Jew is. He's Yireh Shamayim, he's Yireh Hashem. Doesn't really mean fear. It's an awareness of consciousness of God, which means abstention, by extension, is abstention from sin. Because if you're conscious of God's presence, why would you sin? That's Yirat Shamayim. So Lo Tisah is our worship of God in the form of our consciousness of his existence and everything that is entailed in that, in the, recognizing the presence of God at all times, the way we react to that presence, our cognizance of his existence. And really, this is it's something that the Sefer HaChanuch says in terms of this mitzvah, Lo Tisah. It's our obligation to always remember in all our actions, whether it's actions or speech, words, that we are in the presence, in real severe feeling of, to say, a fear, of awe, of awareness. We're in the presence of God. Yirat Shamayim. Okay, so that is the awareness of God and abstention from sin. Zachor. Zachor Yom Shabbat LaKadeshah is what we call the periodic framework for all of the above. It doesn't just represent Shabbat. It's also all the holidays. It's all the periodic days in which we are commanded to forge and enforce and build on a relationship with Hashem. It's the way that in a most acute manner, we can carry out in a very concentrated way the mental worship, the ceremonial worship, and the awareness of God. It's a periodic framework where we are given opportunity to connect to God, whether it's once a week, periodically, or whether it's seasonal with the holidays. That's what Zachor stands for, worshiping God in a more concentrated way periodically, and be able to practice the above, the mental and the physical ceremonial worship of God on the calendar. So where does Kabed et Abicha v'et Emecha fit into this formula of Avodah? Very simple. Kabed et Abicha is the most severe and heavy form of interacting with your fellow man. It's the most obvious form of it, but it represents, in a broader way, all of interaction with our fellow man, what we know as Mizvot Ben Adam leHavero. Positively speaking, they're all incorporated in Kabed et Abicha. And, well, you're going to tell me, how is that avodah? How is that worship? Absolutely. We know that man is created b'Selem Elohim, in the image of God, and the way, and he embodies godliness and a soul. And the way we treat man is only because of the way we're expected to behave vis-a-vis God. It's an extension. And therefore, when one is a fellow man, proper interactor, when man follows all the positive commands of how to interact between us and our fellow Jew, in essence, a man or God or Jew is worshiping HaKadosh Baruch Hu by extension. And that's really the way we're expected to approach our fellow man. He's a piece of God. And if I really want to worship God properly, I have to recognize that he is an image of God. And that's part of worshiping God. Sounds like everything's top heavy on the first half, right? No. But this is all avodah. This is the way we as Jews actively worship HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But we live in this world, and we interact with the rest of the world. We're physical beings. And so the left side, tablet B, is what we call Kedusha, sanctity. And this really is related to by Umot Ha'olam, the nations of the world in general. We are the paradigm for all of them. We model these. Let's take them one by one. Lo Tirsah, don't murder, is simply our respect for human life, whether it's actually while they're living, whether it's even after they're dead, our respect for the deceased. By the way, and this plays out in all forms of life. What about medicine, medical ethics, right? All of that, the way we treat the human body, our respect for human life. That's where the whole the controversial topic of abortion comes up, right? And now, but all the very immoral transsexual and transgender activities that are coming up right now. It's all into this respect for human life. Lo Tisah is the umbrella of that. Lo Tanaf, adultery, refers to gender separation. The fact that God created, yes, two different genders. And there's an appropriateness for how they interact with each other, and there are lines and there are limitations. And there are so many mizvot, lo ta'aseh, and improper behaviors and transgressions and illicit relations that we have to stay away from, and goyim as well. Lo tanaf, gender separation. It's also kedusha. The Rambam, in his book of kedusha, there's only two topics, and one of them is the laws of ishut and the prohibitions of the opposite sex. Kedusha, sanctity. Of course, sanctity also means separation, and how to abstain from. That's how we sanctify ourselves and become godly, by abstaining from certain activities. Lo tighnov, which in the Asera de Biro is referring to not physical thievery of property, but thievery of life, kidnapping. And that's what makes it a capital crime. However, under that umbrella, of course, is lo tighnov, property. And generally speaking, respect for private property, right? And of course, the United States of America and its Constitution, thematically, so much of it has to do with private property rights, and its origin is the Torah Kedusha, and that includes, by the way, all monetary law, business law, civil, all types of civil law, monetary law. It goes beyond that, even in speech, misleading people. All of this is in the umbrella of law tichnov, respect for the property and ownership and assets of others. So in our sanctity section, in our left tablet, so far we have respect for human life, gender separation, and respect for property. This is all the way we properly interact with the rest of the world. Which is not bearing false witness. Of course, that is an extreme violation within the broader spectrum of a justice system, which is also one of the Sheva Mitzvot B'nai Noach, one of the Noah laws to set up a justice system in any society. Of course, Am Yisrael is a superstructure of a Sanhedrin, a court of 71, and then 23, and then 3. And we have so many laws regarding the ethical behavior of judges and the plaintiffs and defendants in the justice system. And of course, we have Shofetim v'Shoterim. We have the police force that carry out the judgment and keep society at bay and in their proper place. That's lo ta'aneh, the justice system in a society. And finally, lo tahmod, don't covet. That is our discipline, representing a discipline in all physical desires, and being able to have our limitations and not pursuing, to having a limit to our pursuit in our physical indulgence, whether that is with the opposite sex, whether that's with food, whether that's with money and assets, right? Lo tahmor, draw a line. Engage in physicality only to the extent that's necessary to survive comfortably, even as human beings, but have our limitations. Discipline ourselves. All that is in lo tahmor. Sanctity. Sanctity is kedusha, is separation in physical activities, is the theme of tablet number 2, tablet B. We sanctify ourselves in respecting human life and human property and the opposite sex, and in making sure our society is organized and there's a hierarchy and authority in our justice system, and that we have limitations in physicality. And so, therefore, HaKadosh Baruch Hu decided in this first presentation to Am Yisrael, to the world at large, of the Torah Kedushah, to give it in 2 nice, neat tablets, and the 5 and 5 system. 5 and 5 system, among many other Pirushim, is so significant because it gives us, as human beings, and especially as Jews and members of Am Yisrael, our guidance in the 2 ways that we function in this world. And that is the Avodat Hashem, our relationship and our worship of God, and our Kedusha, and the sanctity in which we carry ourselves and interact with this world of ours on planet Earth. This is our Aseret HaDeberot presentation. Baruch Adonai Le'olam. Amen v'amen. Shabbat Shalom.